held these discussions in future. Well, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So now I'm out of the scene, but you stay. You stay. You just stay here and stay. Go outside and enjoy the sun.
Please do.
Oh, don't worry, there's go 5 minutes in the sun.
Together, but you also scared me a few times. The first time was in the Caucasus, where we had a problem with your help, and thanks God it wasn't that bad, because we were very isolated in the mountains. The only means of transportation was one horse. We didn't have any communication, but it ended good. The second time was, of course, the most of you were there, was in Slovakia, and recently, of course, you had a stroke, and it's very good to have you here again, and to see you're recovering quite well, because I can't miss you. So, as a token of appreciation, I got you a little present. And it's a symbol of those that cannot speak. I bought it some time ago, waiting for the occasion to give it to you. It's not nicely wrapped, but let's speak that. Yeah, I'll unwrap it.
Okay, great guys. I'll look at this and remind myself to take it easy. Yeah?
Exactly.
Thank you.
And it's this book, Raising Ecology and Forest History, and you can look in it, and there's also a copy here in the library, because last November, when you and I were here, I have given a specimen to the institute here. My title is Large Herbivores Partners for the present preserving biodiversity. That is a close connection for us, because in the ideas about how to preserve biodiversity, this picture is like an icon. This is the forest of Białowieża in Poland. This is a settlement, and this was declared a national park in 1921. There was cattle grazing then. The animals were removed because, according to the theory, they didn't belong in a national park. And then it developed as a closed canopy forest, and there is none or hardly any regeneration of oak anymore. And you can still find those open places, because they are now overgrown with a very young generation of, for instance, hornbeam. There are the oldest trees, and there's no regeneration in the trees, in the growth, and eventually the trees will die. As you can see here, this is an old beech. You can see it's an open-grown tree. It dies, and then you have light on the forest floor. And in the classical theory, that would be the moment that the regeneration of trees would start, but not in the wood pasture system, because there happens what all the foresters said is bad. The animals are preventing the regeneration, and therefore, eventually, the situation changes. Especially the animals concentrate in the forest for the grazing, and they bring in seeds of grasses and herbs in their dung, and they make little lawns, and those lawns are very intensively grazed. And the result, many tree species are already infected by fungi in their youth, in their very youth, but those fungi do not any harm to the tree until it becomes aged, and then they kill the tree, and so in a very fast way it becomes more and more open. You have a question? And the first crown is dying. It's called a stacked oak. Some people explain it that the oak is dying, but it isn't. It's very healthy. And then the oak starts to grow again, and you get very short-toed oaks, which are more or less conic forms, and these are important. Eventually, the lawn that is grazed by the animal is not grazed so intensively everywhere, because the bigger it becomes, the more differentiation comes into existence about the intensity of grazing. And then eventually you see the first thorny species appear again. Here it's some hawthorn. And then you get, in this is bramble, again a young oak. And so the whole process starts again. And somewhere for hundreds of years that it, in our opinion, would be almost permanent grassland. Well, if you look on a very long time, it eventually will be covered by trees. But what is covered by trees will be changed into grassland again. And what I told you earlier is that in these landscapes we could have had very high densities of large ungulates without any problem of regeneration of trees. So my statement is that the so-called problem with large ungulates, between the discussion in Germany, built on wald, or the damage the trees are doing to forestry, is not the damage by the animals, but it's because our theory we have about the primeval situation, about the primeval vegetation, and I think it's a wrong theory. This is Slovensky grass for our Slovakian man on the border with Hungary. I was there before the collapse of the communism, so I don't know how it's then, but it was still grazed there. It was a park-like landscape. And the non-ruminants, which are also eating a lot of grass, horse, tarpan, and the wild boar, that when man introduced cattle, livestock, he did not introduce alien species. He just replaced that by creating nature reserves and removing cattle and horse there. We are creating ecological artifacts. The oaks and the hazel, which are now in forest reserves, are in fact ecological anachronisms. They missed their partners, and the partners were especially the grass-eating herbivores, because the grass-eating herbivores, they can keep the grass in a condition that the thorny species establish. Bison also eats grass and rarely eat grass, but they have a digestion system that cannot digest a very cellulose-rich grass, so they needed fresh grass, and the fresh grass is made originally by the Auroxen and later on by cattle. And in fact you could say that the typical grass eater like the cattle facilitates the European bison, or facilitates the red deer in providing him a grass of a quality that those animals can digest. And
But I see that one question dealing with bison, yes? You have 30 years experience with bison, more or less, yes. Are there any ways how it changes the attitude of people? Yes? How the bison has changed their lives during those 30 years? Or how the people have changed the character of bison during those 30 years? Because, again, it is very important, this experience, this social dimension. In this moment we are speaking about processes, but we are not speaking about one species which is in territory,
We'll do a first presentation before the coffee break, but I would suggest to do the coffee break like yesterday at 10 o'clock, and then we move to the project presentations. This is just simply to update you on what has happened with. There is a new organization right now, and don't forget, we are responsible for the three main layers of the organization. That's the contents, and Joep will tell you something about how it's being dealt with the projects at the moment. The fundraising and the PR is our own responsibility. And thirdly, the sort of network management, say finance and administration, plus the organization of events like these. And that's a real task. We should not underestimate that. But we feel impressed with the... there is an executive body.
Like one error is cancelled because it's not here. Unfortunately, we don't have contact by mobile with me. And such a afraid of people, not so much like wild ones, but they are getting wild very quickly. In fact, it is still possible, I mean, with telemetry to find them and approach, I would say, up to the distance of 50, we are lucky 30 meters in some cases, but that's maximum. But in most cases, they just flee with their hotel immediately. When they can hear people or smell, they just run away. We gathered last winter. There was a TV crew from Polish TV, and they were trying to get some program on bison Bieszczady, and my guy with telemetry equipment was able to bring them more or less close to the herd, because otherwise it would be absolutely impossible. And then those bison.
We try to protect natural processes and bring them back into nature. And herbivores are one part of these natural processes. Okay, let's heard a series from France. You have read protection of natural processes in national parks is a very important task.
And then this area in the northern part of Denmark, for instance, you have the peninsula from West Denmark here, and the areas up here. It's an area about 15 kilometers from south to north, 5 kilometers broad, led into a shallow lake that then soon became a raised bog, which developed over the next 15 to 2,000 years, and the whole area from the south and all the way to the north, including those slightly red areas. The southern part is still completely unspoiled, looking like the picture to the right. And it's an active raised bog. It is developing, it's getting bigger.
It was officially approved by the ministry, which was also a nightmare, especially with the rotation of the ministers. It took more than a year to have this approval, so it was published as official governmental document. And all the materials which were prepared for the strategy were parsed to IUCN, I think 3 years ago already. 4 huge free areas, natural ecosystems, not agricultural lands, but natural ecosystems, possibilities for future integration and development, and what is very important, in this deserts and riparian forests along the rivers of Central Asia and mountain complexes. So this was considered to be one of the priority areas for ecosystem conservation, and for that we prepared a pack of proposals on urgent measures on biodiversity conservation in Central Asia. So
in 2000, group of scientists arranged a review of animals and found about 1 million reindeer in migratory animals in this area. Next year, another group of scientists made another review and received only 220,000 animals in this photo, and each of them 3 scientists, Lamanov, Yakushkin and Kalpashikov, evaluated. And they found that Lamanov, my next example is situation with moose. Now we see in Russia pretty low density of moose, maximum density in little bit to north from Moscow in Yaroslav area. A little bit decline in Asiatic part of Russia. I tried to make exactly, it is wrong data, and you see some, because of huge territory of Russia, only local population crashes are observed.
in Russia, and we have chosen the
of the region. And the park has two sections, Izla and Trizda, tributaries of the Auroxen, which then flows into the Volga. The sections of the park are developing tracts of the old growth for the forest in Russia.
For the pizza parliament, we try in Denmark to take the role of being spear, perceiving things, because most nature NGOs have quite long histories and quite fixed opinions, you could say. So we try to take the global perspective in international conventions and so on, and we try to target basically everyone. But being a niche organization, our major target is actually the other nature NGOs and also decision makers. The counts of birds show that it's about 2.5 to 3 times the quantity of birds per area, and much more species as well. But what we then also try to promote is simply that the concept of forest is really too limited, that we need to include in our idea of forest all of the cattle we have. But it's homeless, and they can be on their own all year round, so they're not uninteresting for management purposes. This story, of course, we try to repeat, even the elephants, that we miss something important. That this is the set of animals we would expect in Central Northern Europe without man, and this is what we sort of have, including, of course, domestic animals. To put together the German associations with a county that is sort of driving the WWF project, convinced them that it would be an idea to introduce taurgovju cattle or Auroxen cattle in an area in the WWF project. You see, this looks like a female dog shitting or something. I sent Margaret a picture of the skeleton, and she said, "Which animal is this?" So I was a bit in the dark until I found pictures like this on the internet, and I thought, oh, I better look at live animal pictures rather than. But the position here, I think, is they've been thinking they had to look like bison. I think they had to be tall on the shoulder, so they just put the legs a bit down north of what is it called? Never mind. And dry our field, really, in Denmark. So just to show you, here's the area that Uffe told you about, the Lielo. Some have ideas that this should be a national park 12 times larger than with a large animal.
2 evenings ago, and since he's not here in the room, but he's still among us. How to make a picture of a picture. Now in the Netherlands we have our new to the German border, and in November we will have a meeting with Germany, with all the Bundesamt für Naturschutz, the Federal Agency for Nature Conservation. We'll organize a meeting with all the neighbor countries to work out the cross-boundary ecological networks, and I think it's better to talk about the results than the ideas we have. I also brought recent figures. The lower lines, we can see that are the dead, that are the animals that died during the process. Red is for cattle, so here you see the population development of cattle slowly declining, and here you see like the teeth of a saw, the number of animals that die. So for instance here, then you can fall in a kind of feeling of stress. All the animals are going to die, because here 170, 180 animals died in 1 year. But it's not surprising when you look at the total number of the population. And this year there were only 6 or 7 cows that died in last winter. For horses, you see in development, slowly development, but still you see the number of horses increasing. And red deer, I don't have said before, it was very low in this period. We were about 140, and this year about 60, 70. Maybe it's also a beginning of the time. That will be a sunset or the sunrise, our performance in the place in the moment.
Okay, very short communication. We had about half an hour talk about veterinary issues in de-domesticated species that are meant to substitute extinct species. We have 3 sets of problems in grazing projects in the moment. One is the individual marking that is required only in cattle in the moment.
We come to the end of this first network meeting of the Large Herbivores Foundation, and I am personally very, very glad that I made the decision to come here and to meet with you all. And I mean, it's a great help to be with your friends when you're in such a situation. And I really was very anxious up front and very, whatever, for instance, my English would hold on. But this sort of seems to work, so I'm very glad about that. So thank you very much for having been here. Hope that you all will stay with us with the new foundation. We still have a lot of work to do to have the foundation really running smoothly as we plan to do, but be assured that we can do that. And of course, I have to... Seems a bit out of place. Okay, anyway. So, right there, you have to do the right thing. Yeah, okay, good luck to it. Then, of course, doing, well, a bit of lousy driving, but okay, for the rest it was completely okay. And we, I know you have a lot of books already, so this Okay, so